My stomach hurts!
Not again!
Go get some leaves.
Leaves?
Here is a question that has existed for 200,000 years and almost never been asked out loud. Women have been having periods since the very first human beings walked the earth. 200,000 years of menstruation. And yet, the tampon was only invented in 1929, the disposable pad in 1896, which means there is a gap of approximately 199,000 years. So what did they actually use? What did a woman do 50,000 years ago living in a forest or on a grassland or in a cave, with no shops, no cotton, no running water, when her period arrived? That is exactly what we are going to find out today. There is one biological fact that completely changes how we think about this topic, and almost nobody knows it. Prehistoric women had periods far less often than modern women do. A modern woman living in an industrialized country has approximately 450 periods in her lifetime, around 12 per year for roughly 35 to 40 years. Now, evolutionary biologists and anthropologists who study modern hunter-gatherer societies, the closest living equivalent to prehistoric life, estimate that a prehistoric woman had somewhere between 50 and 100 periods in her entire life, because prehistoric women spent most of their reproductive years either pregnant or breastfeeding. And extended breastfeeding, nursing a child for 2, 3, sometimes 4 years, suppresses ovulation through a hormone called prolactin. No ovulation means no period. And years of nursing between each subsequent child. A prehistoric woman might go even 3 years at a stretch without a period at all. This does not mean prehistoric women had no need to manage menstruation. Even 50 or 100 periods across a lifetime is 50 or 100 occasions that require a real practical response. But the scale was genuinely different. Menstruation was an intermittent, occasional event, not the reliable monthly visitor it is for most modern women. That changes everything about how solutions were developed, shared, and remembered. Now, here is the honest truth about the archaeology, and I want to be upfront about it. There is almost no direct physical evidence specifically documenting prehistoric menstrual management. Almost none. Not because prehistoric women did not manage their periods. They absolutely did. But because the materials they would have used were organic. Plant fibers, animal skins, moss, leaves, soft natural materials. And organic materials do not survive 200,000 years in the ground under normal conditions. We have prehistoric stone tools because stone survives. We have fossilized bones because bone can last under the right conditions. We do not have fabric scraps, plant fiber bundles, or pieces of animal skin from most prehistoric sites. The evidence, if it ever existed in physical form, is simply gone. So, how do we reconstruct what prehistoric women actually did? We use 3 methods. First, analogy from modern hunter-gatherer societies, like the Sand People of Southern Africa, Aboriginal Australians, and indigenous Amazonian groups whose daily lives are the closest available window into prehistoric existence. Second, analysis of which materials were naturally available in prehistoric environments and which of those had properties useful for absorption. And third, one extraordinary and still debated piece of archaeological evidence involving a red mineral pigment that prehistoric humans were obsessed with for 300,000 years. Let us start with the most likely material, the strongest candidate, based on availability, physical properties, and documented use across multiple unconnected cultures worldwide, is sphagnum moss. Sphagnum moss can hold up to 20 times its own dry weight in liquid. 20 times. That is significantly more absorbent than cotton. It grows abundantly across the temperate and subarctic regions where prehistoric humans lived, covering forest floors, bog edges, and riverbanks in thick, soft, easily gathered carpets. It is naturally soft against skin. It has a mildly acidic chemistry that gives it gentle antibacterial properties, and it requires absolutely zero processing or technology to use. You walk up to it, you pick it up, and it is ready. Here is the proof that this was not just a prehistoric solution. During World War I, when cotton surgical dressings ran critically short on the Western Front, Allied military surgeons turned to sphagnum moss. Volunteer civilian teams harvested it from bogs across Scotland and Canada by the ton. It outperformed cotton in absorption tests and showed lower infection rates in some wound comparisons. Battlefield surgeons in 1916 were using the exact same material that prehistoric women had almost certainly been using for 50,000 years or more. And the clinching evidence. Documented, independent use of sphagnum moss as a menstrual absorbent has been recorded in indigenous cultures across northern Europe, indigenous North America, and Siberia, groups with no contact with each other. When completely separate civilizations independently arrive at the same solution, it is very strong evidence that the solution genuinely works, and that any intelligent person in an environment where the plant grows would eventually discover it. In environments where moss was not available, the open grasslands of Africa, the arid steppe, the dry savanna, the primary solution was almost certainly soft animal hide. Prehistoric humans were hunters. Every successful hunt produced not just food but skin, fur, and sinew. Soft scraped inner hide, the flexible inner layer of animal skin before it is tanned hard, is pliable, moderately absorbent, and available anywhere people are hunting. A small piece, folded and worn against the body inside whatever clothing was available, works as a basic pad. We know prehistoric women were exceptionally skilled material workers because of one remarkable piece of evidence. The oldest known sewing needles found in Denisova Cave in Siberia date to approximately 50,000 years ago. 50,000 years ago, someone was using a needle made from bone to sew fitted clothing from animal skins. That requires measuring, cutting, and joining material with precision. The people doing that work had every skill needed to make a functional menstrual pad. The technology and the expertise already existed. It would have been an obvious application. Alongside hide and moss, cattail plants, which grow in dense stands along rivers and lakes exactly where prehistoric humans made camp, produce a silky, cottony seed fluff that is extraordinarily soft and highly absorbent. No processing required. You pull apart the seed head, and the material is there. Documented use of cattail fluff as a menstrual absorbent has been independently recorded in indigenous cultures across North America, Asia, and Europe. Dried grass, large soft leaves, and the fine underfur of small animals rounded out the options depending on the season and the region. Prehistoric women were expert naturalists. Their survival depended on knowing every resource in their environment intimately. The most absorbent, softest, most comfortable natural materials would not have taken long to identify. The hypothesis: prehistoric women painted themselves or their daughters with red ochre at first menstruation, marking the transition to womanhood with the color that most visibly represented it. It fits the pattern of ochre use. It fits the universal pattern of menarche ceremony. It is speculative. It cannot be proven from the physical evidence alone, but it remains one of the most compelling unresolved questions in prehistoric archaeology, and no fully satisfying alternative explanation for ochre's central role in prehistoric ritual life has ever been established. One more thing needs to be said about how prehistoric women managed their periods, and it is perhaps the most important thing of all. They were not alone. Prehistoric humans lived in tight, close-knit bands of 20 to 50 people. Every woman in the band knew every other woman intimately, across all stages of life. Older women who had been menstruating for decades held enormous practical knowledge: which local materials worked best, which plants eased the cramps, how to keep going with daily life when the pain was difficult. And for the pain, the answer was fire. Prehistoric humans had been using fire for at least 400,000 years, a heated stone wrapped in animal skin and held against the lower abdomen, sitting close to the fire's warmth. These were not superstition. A 2012 clinical study published in Evidence-Based Nursing found that continuous low-level heat therapy is as effective as ibuprofen for primary menstrual cramp pain. The prehistoric woman pressing a fire-warmed stone to her abdomen was administering a treatment that modern controlled trials have now confirmed works as well as over-the-counter painkillers. She was right, and that knowledge, what works, what to gather, what to do, was passed from older women to younger women, from mothers to daughters, across hundreds of generations and hundreds of thousands of years, before a single word of it was ever written down. So what did ancient cave women use for their periods? Sphagnum moss from the forest floor, soft scraped animal hide, cattail seed fluff from wetland plants, dried grass and large soft leaves when other materials were not available, warm stones from the fire held against the body for the pain, and the wisdom of experienced women, shared and accumulated over more time than any civilization has ever existed. We have no physical evidence because nothing survived, but the biology is real. The materials existed in the environment. The intelligence applying them was fully human, exactly as capable and observant as any person alive today. The prehistoric woman managing her period was not helpless, not ignorant, not primitive. She was resourceful, she was knowledgeable, and she was working with a knowledge tradition passed down across 200,000 years of women's experience. A tradition so old and so long ignored by the people who wrote history that we are only now beginning to ask the questions needed to recover it. If this changed the way you think about prehistoric women, leave a comment below and subscribe for more of the history that never made it into the textbooks.